I might start calling myself controversial Ralph Anthony rather than real Ralph Anthony, because I'm definitely coming up with some controversial topics to talk about these days. But it's because it's true. I cannot help it. I'm only going to speak the truth online. I'm not going to bullshit people. I'm not going to lie to my people, right? I have a responsibility to be completely truthful to you. Wherever I go in the world, I'm going to say it how it fucking is, and I don't care what people think or what they do. I'll slap them sideways anyway. The title of this video is very blatant, and it literally says what it's supposed to say. Most wealthy people in this city do not have real friends. And what I also find interesting is the same rules also apply to places like Miami. But the same rules don't apply to all wealthy people around the world. It more so depends where you've actually chosen to live. So wealthy people that I met in Charleston, South Carolina, were not the same as wealthy people that I've met in Dubai or Miami. In fact, wealthy people from Charleston, South Carolina were actually fucking really nice people. Good, family-orientated Christians who went to church every Sunday. And I guess that was more of a case of old money, a family that owned a paper mill that's been running for 200 years. So that family has had money for so long, they don't really care about buying Lamborghinis and Ferraris and driving around Charleston. In fact, if you drive a Lamborghini around Charleston, people basically laugh at you and think, who is this cocky dickhead driving this car around here? You're much better off driving a old school Rolls Royce or Bentley, right? You'll get much more props for that. But in nouveau rich places like Dubai, everyone wants to drive a Lamborghini because they want to keep up with the Joneses, right? So it's really interesting how I've noticed that the wealthy people here, and these are obviously generalizations, because if you're some idiot that's going to comment on this saying, I'm rich and I've got friends in Dubai. Yeah, I get that, Dumbo. But generally what I'm saying is that most wealthy people here don't actually have real friends. And this is the reason why. Wealthy people are all about transactions, okay? The reason they actually became wealthy from nothing is because they understood that there's a game to play. And the game is that you need to exploit a certain industry or add a shit ton of value in a certain industry in order to gain abnormal sums of profit, okay? So for example, I went from being broke to being wealthy by not necessarily exploiting, but finding an opportunity in a market and attacking that for a number of different years. For like 3-4 years, I found an opportunity in a market in the online world, in my digital marketing agency, and I was able to tackle that where I didn't have many other competitors. So I was able to exploit for 3-4 years, make abnormal profits, and then after that, the whole operation kind of went to shit. No, it wasn't a scam. It was just a exploitation of a certain industry through my marketing agency, where we were basically looking for opportunities in certain types of markets where we could do PPC arbitrage, right? So where I could buy clicks for cheap and then I could sell them on, or I could even buy clicks for cheap and then sell them on to my clients. And then I was basically an affiliate passing leads. But in order for me to do that, I had to exploit a market and find a niche that fit for me. And what you'll find is a lot of people in these sorts of towns that have exploded in wealth, there's a reason why there's a bunch of crypto scammers around here and rug pullers, right? We all know this issue with crypto rug pullers. And where are they going to escape to? They're going to come places like this. So those sorts of characters, right? And I'm not painting you all with the same brush. If you're a hardworking person living in Dubai, good for you. There's a shit ton of hardworking people living in Dubai. Bless them. It's almost slavery. It's literally disgusting what the workers and what they're put through and how they live. You've got the super rich, and then you've got pretty much poverty line, right? So those fellas work so hard for their for their money, to be able to send some money back home and sleep in rooms with 10 other people. It's really despicable to see that. But I guess some people would argue that it's better than them actually being back home and having no work. But what happens with some of these wealthy people here is because they understand the game and because they understand it's transactional, right? They need to make a certain amount of money, and they need to make a large sum of money to be able to keep up with the lifestyle here. Things are expensive here. You go out, you want to go to nice places, it's super expensive. It's not like when I spend time in Romania. Romania's absolutely not these sorts of prices, but I spend time in Romania because I find that it's a good arbitrage opportunity, whereby it's cheaper, the girls are hotter, and they're better quality anyway, right? So that's called social and geographical arbitrage. But ultimately, the reason why these people here don't have any real friends is because, again, they're going to treat their friends as a transaction. It's simply a fucking transaction. They'll hang out with you, and the same applies in Miami, by the way, because you're one, cool, two, good looking, three, have a level of status, or four, wealthy, and actually five, you're a plug of some sort, so they can actually get something from you. They can get into a club. You're a yacht broker. They can sit on yachts for free because of you. So there's like something, they'll just try and get something out of you. It's basically a transaction the whole time, right? So if you're one of those five things, or indeed you're all of them, fuck me, you're gonna have a lot of friends, people are gonna love you. But I noticed that I gained friends quite fast in places like Miami. And the same would happen to me here in Dubai. I would have no problem making a shit ton of acquaintances very quickly. Now, luckily, I have best friends that I actually grew up with from London and around the world that have moved here. So these are long-term relationships that I've had. One of my best friends who lives here, I've known for 25 years. Now, that's very different, but I knew him from growing up back home. So if you have that, that's excellent. But most people who are actually trying to make new friends in this sort of town will notice the people basically just want shit from you, right? They either want to be seen with someone who's good looking because you either just bring girls to the table, or you're a good looking girl and you can bring good, cool, like hot friends to the table, or because you're rich so you can split things, or you can buy them shit, or you've got high status so you can get them into places, you can get them into cool parties, or you're just good. Being good looking is usually just quite an attractive thing for humans. Humans just want to hang around with more attractive people. And the fifth one, like I said, is being plugged in, getting a connect, getting a hookup somewhere. Promoters actually live a fucking hilarious life, right? They're deemed very cool people, even though they might not have that much money necessarily. You could be a low-level promoter, but you could get a bunch of hot girls into a club. Now, that's got a lot of value to these people. So people are going to use you for what you can do for them. Right, so people are very, very self-interested in these sorts of places because they've learned that they have to be, especially if they've made money from nothing. Not the hard-working people who have worked for 15, 20 years and who've come here and who are working for some of these corporations. They might be able to afford a Lamborghini, but it's more so the new age guys who have extreme wealth from something they've done in the short term, or of course they've inherited a bunch of money from their parents. Usually those kids have fuck all to do during the day, and they tend to be the worst kind of people to hang out with because they're extremely transactional people. Again, these are generalizations. Do not be leaving a comment saying, I've got wealthy parents and I'm actually like a really nice person. Yeah, no one gives a shit. We know that. But in general, this is the sort of atmosphere that you're going to receive in these kind of places because you are ultimately a product of your environment. Okay, you are literally a product of this environment. You cannot help it. You have to keep up with the Joneses. You're seeing Lamborghinis and Ferraris every day. You're like, shit. You're seeing hot girls. You're seeing these guys spending money on the hot girls. You're like, oh shit, how do I get in there? Oh, I really want a piece of that. Well, you're unfortunately going to have to turn into one of these transactional dickheads where you're literally utilizing people for transactions in order to get into places, in order to hang out with hot girls, in order to get like a freebie on a yacht, or, to get in on a deal with someone so you make an amount of money so you can buy that apartment or so you can buy that car. So these places tend to breed people who are materialistic and very transactional, and that leads to you not having any real friends. And I noticed that when I go to places where even if people are wealthy, but they're much more kind of smaller towns and they're not as pretentious as these kind of places. I mentioned Charleston being one of them. There are a lot of cities in Europe that are not like this, right? Most of the places I've been to in Eastern Europe, when I spent time in Belgrade in Serbia last year, and also when I spent time in Budapest in Hungary, it's not the same sort of atmosphere. You can actually build real friendships in those countries. What I found, especially also with the Eastern culture, when you make friends with Russian people, where they're quite cold to begin with, but once you actually get in there with them, they call you a brother and you're really in there with that crowd and they protect you and it's not transactional. But with some of these cities, and especially Miami and Dubai, you'll find that it's extremely transactional, which leads to you basically not having any real friends. It all just becomes one big show.